Hey guys, welcome to another video here on the AviationPro channel. In this video I'd like to give you a review of the new ORBX scenery, Netherlands TrueEarth. As a Dutchman myself, I highly anticipated this scenery and I could not wait to install it, and I'd like to give you a review. I'm gonna take it through it. First I'm gonna show you some of the features. I'll take you through the installation process and kind of what the documentation and the control panels look like. I'm gonna show you the positives and negatives of this scenery. And then we'll also take a look at Flytampa Amsterdam, whether it's compatible with the scenery or not. And then finally I will end the video with some comparison footage with real life footage that I took last summer. So I hope you will enjoy this video. Make sure you use the description if you need to skip to certain segments. And then we'll take a look at this beautiful scenery. So ORBX TrueEarth is kind of a new product line by ORBX, and you might know ORBX already of their beautiful terrain products. Of course, FTX Global is a product that many people use, and of course they also produce a lot of airports. And this scenery of Netherlands TrueEarth covers the entire Netherlands, the entire country, in photoreal textures. But with that, it's not just a flat 2D image that you're flying over like in the old days with some sceneries, but you know, you really get a feeling of the 3D structure of the country. You can see a lot of buildings, a lot of trees. Thanks to their new technologies, they've been able to basically put a building everywhere where there's supposed to be a building, and also put a tree wherever there's supposed to be a tree. And with that, they also include a lot of interesting landmarks and points of interest. So you really get a variety of the country, and really get a sense that you're flying over the Netherlands as it looks like in real life. And I can definitely tell it does look very, very good, especially from higher altitudes. You can just really see all the structures and the shapes of the towns and cities and suburbs. And of course also some points of interest are there, and windmills here and there. You know, the picture becomes very complete this way. It's not just a flat 2D picture anymore that you're flying over. It's a real coherent whole, so to speak. So of course in the description there's a link to the product page, so you can check out all the features yourself. I'm just going to show you a little bit around, take a look at the positives and negatives of the scenery. And what's interesting also, you know, because photoreal scenery tends to be, you know, only one season, well actually they've hand edited all textures to cover 5 different seasons, which is amazing. So no matter whether you fly in winter or in summer, you always have a very realistic picture of the Netherlands. So let's take a further look at this scenery. So this scenery is available for prepared version 4 only currently. They plan on releasing a light version for older simulators like FSX and the older prepared versions. Why light? Because simply this scenery is huge, and those simulators cannot handle that because they're 32-bit. But because prepared version 4 is 64-bit, they've now been able to really maximize the abilities of prepared version 4 by including a lot of objects in the scenery. So the installation procedure is pretty simple. You just log into FTX Central by ORBX, and there you can purchase and download the scenery. Now it is a whopping 77 gigabyte download, so it's a huge scenery. So be prepared that it might take a couple of hours before the installation is complete. And once installed, you will be able to check out the product. You have a user manual that you can take a look at. First of all, the control panel that you can also configure, so you can reduce some settings here and there if you want to increase the performance. And then the user manual covers kind of the basics of the product. There's really not much to say about this product. You can just enjoy and fly in it, and it's pretty simple. So that's kind of how the installation works. So keep in mind, it is a huge file, so you need to have, at least I think 150 gigabytes of a free disk space, because the actual installation size might be larger than the download size. And just to be sure, you always want to have some margin. And then for the other simulators, also X-Plane 11, I believe they will make other versions for that as well. So just be patient, and for now, prepared version 4 users can definitely enjoy the scenery. So while we're flying around in this Beechcraft Bonanza by Coronado, I'm just gonna show you some of the positives of this scenery. And the main positive is actually that the overall look of the Netherlands looks great. It's the photoreal textures below, and then the buildings on top of that really creates a very nice sight. So especially if you're flying a low VFR, you can really see cities already in the distance if you happen to fly during a good day. And you know, if you're flying over one city, you can already see the other city in the distance because of those 3D objects. And in the past, you know, sceneries could not include that many 3D objects, so it kind of would have looked dull and not very interesting. Now, and the scenery itself, you know, you can see a lot of ships and boats. For example, in the harbor area near Rotterdam, you can see a lot of fuel tanks and wind turbines. Really a complete picture, which makes it very nice to fly both VFR at low altitude, but also IFR with commercial airliners at high altitudes. You can really see the scenery come to life thanks to all these 3D objects, and it looks amazing. And what makes this such a good VFR scenery is because all those 3D objects are, you know, placed correctly. So everywhere where there should be a village or a little town or a suburb or, for example, a forest, you can definitely see the size and the shape and the structure of those objects, or multiple collection of those objects is accurate. So for example, if you're flying into Amsterdam Schiphol Airport, if you want to fly VFR, and if you're looking for waypoint Bravo, it's very easy to recognize. As you can see, it's next to this little lake here, and you just aim for that. You can definitely see that structure in the scenery as well. So VFR navigation using the scenery, and thanks to all these 3D objects being placed, is very easy and great fun. Another great feature of this scenery, as I already told, there are 5 different seasons. So every season you will be able to fly over photoreal scenery because it's all hand-edited textures. So here's an example of flying during the fall season. You can kind of see the trees have changed color and the textures look a little bit different. And just to kind of show you the basic look of the scenery, here's a zoomed out view of all the different seasons. So here we have summer, and then we have spring, then we have fall, and then we have winter. So as you can see, there's a lot of variety right here. So here's some more footage of flying through the winter. As you can see, there's kind of a white overlay over the textures that make it look like winter. And yeah, to be honest, it looks quite good and makes it fun to fly over the Netherlands in winter as well. And what I also love about this scenery is the night lighting. It's just fantastic. It just you can see how well it blends in with the scenery, the 3D objects and the horizon and the sky. It's just amazing. So here we're flying through daylight, and then we're gonna switch to evening. You can see it just looks amazing, and then we go back to the morning time, and yeah, just a great variety. They also enhanced the light system, so you will be able to see those lights all the way in the distance and also the highways. For example, here we're flying over at Rotterdam again, and so you can kind of see what the city looks like. And you know, this is a very realistic picture of the Netherlands, I think. You know, during the evening and night it looks pretty dark outside, and all those lights and cities light up. The rest stays dark, and then you know, during dusk and dawn you can really see it all blend together in very, very well. So you will definitely enjoy those views if you arrive early in the morning or late in the evening in the Netherlands. So all in all, it's an absolutely amazing scenery, as you can see. As you will explore it further, you will discover landmarks like cathedrals and bridges, things like that. And as far as performance goes, you might wonder, you know, with all these buildings and you know, trees, how does it affect performance? Well, actually, it's pretty good. You know, on average with my system specs, which you can check out in the description, I get about 30 to 35 frames, and in urban areas I get around 25 frames per second. So and rarely drop below 20. The hiccups you might see in this video are simply because I'm recording, which is quite CPU intensive as well. So in general, the performance is great. The Netherlands is usually already an area where the frames are low because of all the different mesh and, you know, the different water structures that are involved. But you know, with the scenery, I barely had noticed any difference. And even when flying around Flytampa Amsterdam with this scenery, you know, my frames are still great and have not changed that much. So the developers did a really great job getting all those 3D objects in there, using the prepared version 4 capabilities while maintaining good frame rates. So as with any product review, I do have to mention some negatives, and especially since I'm a Dutchman, I do recognize some things. So if you're from the Netherlands, you probably recognize these things as well. And being Dutch, you know, most Dutch people are pretty critical, but I'm not going to be that critical. But I do want to let you be aware of a few things, and you know, kind of tone down your expectations here and there, because I had some high expectations that did not really show up in the scenery. One important thing is the Autogen buildings that you see. If you fly over a city like here in Rotterdam, and being a local of this city, you know, I don't really recognize it as Rotterdam. If I would see the 2D picture like on Google Earth, and I would be able to recognize all buildings, but because of those Autogen buildings that are placed on top of it, you don't really recognize it as your city anymore. Of course, there are a few landmarks here and there, for example the bridges and the Euromast and things like that, but there are not that many. As you can see, some important new buildings that are pretty recent are missing. For example, the Markthal near the Blaak area, or the Central Station, even the Lawrence Church, which is a big cathedral here in Rotterdam, is missing. So I hope they will add some more of these buildings just to kind of, you know, blend in well with the Autogen, because in some cities you have more of these landmarks than others, but you know, Rotterdam being a big city, and you know, living there and recognizing that all, you know, I do notice those buildings missing. So it looks a bit generic. So if you go out fly and fly to your own house, do not expect to actually see your house. Likely there will be an Autogen building just placed on top of the 2D image, which, you know, is kind of sad, because on the flat 2D image you would see your house, but you know, in this case it's blocked by an, you know, rather ugly Autogen building. So do not expect to see like Google Earth 3D technology in this scenery, because frankly, you know, I think it will take a couple of years before we see a product like that, and you cannot expect to be every building to be exactly precise to the real thing for this price. So just keep it in mind. Keep in mind that most of the buildings are Autogen. Yes, there are landmarks, but yeah, again, most of it looks a bit generic. Now, with the buildings mainly being Autogen, there's kind of another issue, which there was also some discussion on the forum about, and that's about the so-called rijtjeshuizen, so rows of houses that you see in the Netherlands. And in many villages you see this type of structure where there are many houses linked to each other, where all the roofs are linked with each other, so you do not have those separate roofs. But if you fly over the ORBX scenery, you do see that every building, even when they're in one row, kind of have separate roofs, and you know, it doesn't look very realistic, again, from a Dutch perspective. But if you're, you know, foreign to this country, you probably won't be bothered by it that much. Another little negative thing, well, this is probably more to do with the simulator, is that yes, you do get blurries. Of course, this all depends on your settings and how well your computer can perform. But in general, I do see blurries every now and then, especially if you fly low and fast. Now, of course, in practice, if you're flying a VFR airplane, you should be flying pretty slow. But just keep in mind that you might see some blurries here and there, some pop-ups. But I hope that Prepared will, or Lockheed Martin will make Prepared even better with those photoreal sceneries. But in general, you know, it's fine. If you fly airliners and go up to cruise altitude, you probably won't notice it that much. And when you're flying low and slow, you won't be flying that, or you won't be noticing the blurries that much either. So it only really happens when you, for example, take a fighter jet and, you know, at very fast speeds, or when you fly a GA aircraft at 150 knots at a pretty low altitude. You know, it can happen. So just keep it in mind. But in general, the textures are very crisp. Another negative issue is the airports. Frankly, I had hoped for more detailed airports. All airports are included, that's true, but they're not modeled very well and close to reality. Yes, you can have the FCAT are up to date, so the general layout of the airport is up to date. For example, here at Amsterdam, you can see the new taxiway that leads to the cargo apron from the base of runway 24. But in general, the airports, you know, kind of look generic as well, pretty much similar to default. If you look at this airport here, Groningen Airport, in the northern parts of the Netherlands, you can also see the new apron there. And then when you look around the aircraft, you will notice some 3D grass around the runway here and there, and around the taxiways. And then also at the end of the runway, you can see 3D poppy lights. But that's about it. I did not notice any real, you know, other structures or actual buildings that were modeled off the airport. So that's kind of sad. I had hoped that they put a little bit more effort in making the airports look a little bit more close to reality, given the, you know, 2D picture underneath the building. So Do not have too high expectations for the airports. Luckily, for example, for Amsterdam you can use Flytampa Amsterdam, and also there's still the freeware alternative NL2000, which is also great freeware VFR scenery. If you want to have the separate airports, I would highly recommend downloading those, and perhaps they might also work with this scenery. I've not checked it out myself yet, but it's just a tip. And one final thing I'd like to mention is that during the winter season, as you can see in the top-down view, I did not manage to get snow in the southern part of the Netherlands, which is kind of a shame. So I hope they will maybe, for example, provide an option to just enable snow in the entire Netherlands instead of only the northern part, because in reality there's not much snow in winter anyways. And when there is snow, it's likely that the entire country is covered rather than just the north. So it's kind of a shame that the south does not seem to be covered in snow. Maybe I missed it. I tried it by selecting the January month and also by starting with snow, but you know, it didn't work. So I hope that can be fixed sometime. Now, I already mentioned Flytampa a couple of times in this review, and the reason is because it's a very nice scenery of Amsterdam Schiphol Airport, and I think a lot of people use it. I definitely use it a lot. And from what I know, it blends pretty well with the scenery. As long as you select the correct season in the Flytampa configurator, it will blend pretty well. And if you make sure that the Flytampa entry of Flytampa Amsterdam is above the ORBX entries in the scenery library, then you should be fine. You can check out the compatibility forum on ORBX for more information on regarding to making these sceneries compatible. But as long as the Flytampa entry is above ORBX Netherlands, it should work, at least on my side. So when you run FTX Central, it will correct it again. So you have to make sure when you fly in and out of Amsterdam that it's on top of the scenery library in order to prevent the ORBX Amsterdam scenery from popping up above the Flytampa Amsterdam scenery. And as you can see from the footage, it looks amazing during day and night. Absolutely nice, and the frames are pretty good as well with this combination. I did not really notice any difference, to be honest, so that's a great news. So just to finalize this review, I'd like to share with you some real world footage and compare it to kind of what it looks like in the sim. So here's a takeoff with the Delta Airbus A330 from Amsterdam runway 24 to Seattle, and then here's kind of a similar takeoff. This case with the KLM 747, you can kind of see the trees and the buildings, how well they are modeled, and how well they give these structural look to the towns and villages as you depart out of Amsterdam. And then here is the night arrival of KLM 747 flying from Chicago to Amsterdam, landing at runway 18 right. As you arrive, you can see the windmills and or the wind turbines in the North Sea, and they have also been modeled in the ORBX scenery, as you can see, so that's really nice. But especially as you approach the coast of the Netherlands, you can just see how well the new light technology blends in with the rest of the scenery. It gives a very realistic look to the Netherlands, and I absolutely love it. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this review of ORBX the Netherlands TrueEarth. I definitely enjoyed the scenery. It might take a little getting used to as a local, to get used to the Autogen buildings instead of the flat 2D image with more accurate representations of the buildings. However, in general, this scenery just looks amazing. It definitely has potential if they maybe add some more landmarks here and there, especially in the larger cities. But then again, you're limited to data availability and of course time and money. So but in general, it's an absolutely amazing scenery. Great for VFR flying, great for IFR flying. I can't wait to try this out, flying a couple flights during sunset or sunrise into Amsterdam with an airliner. So as you can see from this review, it's definitely a product that I would recommend, and I will look forward to the future what their new TrueEarth technology may bring. So thanks for watching this review here on the AviationPro channel. If you liked this review, make sure you subscribe to the channel, it would be much appreciated. And if you like to support the channel, make sure you head over to my Patreon page, patreon.com/AviationPro. Your help would be very much appreciated. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one.